Hello and welcome to the morning programming of the NTN. We're coming to you live from downtown Castries. This is day 3 of the parliamentary sittings. We've so far seen the sittings of the House of Assembly, the lower house, on Tuesday, the 10th of November, and Wednesday, the 11th of November 2020. Today we'll be seeing the sitting of the Senate, the upper house, going over the same motions as well as the bills later on today. And we do have papers to be laid by ministers of government as well as the motions for the Honourable House. Be it resolved that Parliament by affirmation resolution approves the draft of value-added tax rate, that is the tourism sector's goods and services ordered to vary the rate of tax for goods and services provided by the hotel and other providers in the tourism sector, to set the rate of tax for tourism sector goods and services as follows. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow an amount of $13 million from the Caribbean Development Bank, consisting of a special funds resources portion in the amount of $10,800,000 and an ordinary capital resources portion in the amount of $19,200,000 for the purpose of financing the implementation of policy reform initiatives designed to support St. Lucia's COVID-19 crisis response and achieving fiscal stability. And be it resolved that Parliament revokes the Finance Administration Act, resolution of Parliament to authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee borrowing by the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority (SLASPA) from a syndicate of banks led by the Bank of St. Lucia Limited to finance the Urinary International Redevelopment Project, published as statutory instrument number 124 of 2019. Be it further resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of EC $202,500,000 for the purpose of financing the Urinary International Airport Redevelopment Project by SLASPA from a syndicate of banks led by the Bank of St. Lucia as follows. We're seeing Bank of St. Lucia $58,900,000 EC, First National Bank of St. Lucia $54,500,000 EC, Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited $40,100,000 EC, Antigua Commercial Bank Limited $24,500,000 EC, and the Eastern Caribbean Amalgamated Bank $24,500,000 EC. The details we will see later on today being debated and looked over by the senators in the Honourable House today, following dialogue in the Honourable House of the last 2 days by the lower house, the House of Assembly. There are also bills to be considered coming off of the House of Assembly sittings. We have the Public Finance Management Bill, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, the St. Lucia Tourism Authority Amendment Bill, and the Tourism Levy Bill. So this legislation will be looked over by the Senate later on today. That is for the proceedings of the Senate. And just to give you some background information on the Public Finance Management Bill, this legislation is not new. It was presented previously in the Honourable House in 2017, and since then it has been reviewed. There has been a review to this legislation by both public and private sector stakeholders, and it is coming back to the House. And we saw it being brought to the lower house and now to the upper. The finance bill, just to give you some understanding, it sets the rules and processes that will direct government in mobilizing and spending of its funds. And to go back to the loan, the $30 million loan, I believe that's the first matter to be taken up in today's proceedings, is a loan from the CDB to meet the budgetary shortfall, given that government revenues have fallen by over 60%. It is also to meet increased costs in the health sector as a result of COVID-19. Also, it will be going towards supporting households at multiple levels that are affected by unemployment due to COVID-19, as well as micro and macro initiatives to build back the economy. We did see some level of debate in the lower house earlier this week, and we stand by at this time for the commencement of the Senate sitting to hear word from the honorable members here on their position with these motions and these 4 bills. I believe it is the second sitting that we've seen the incoming senators. We have 2 new senators from the government as well as 2 new senators from the parliamentary opposition. We now go back into studio as we await the commencement of the parliamentary sittings. But before we do, we just want to give you a status update on things as it pertains to our COVID-19 situation. As at Wednesday, I believe that was the last word we got on the figures for COVID-19. St. Lucia has registered to date 148 cases of the novel coronavirus, and we registered our first fatalities to the virus this week. 2 cases, 2 individuals succumbed. That is associated to COVID-19. The number of persons who are in isolation here in St. Lucia, 63. The number of persons who have recovered from COVID-19 in St. Lucia to date, 32. And so at this time, the word continues, especially in the 30-day period instituted by the authorities, to make use and to be aware of the heightened measures taken, infection prevention measures, the protocols that are in place for the protection of the population as the authorities seek to contain and manage the coronavirus. Clusters of the coronavirus are emerging from various sections of the country, and we encourage you to adhere to the protocols, make use of the infection prevention measures, the washing of your hands frequently with soap and water, and if you're not able to, the use of hand sanitizer, the use of your mask, observing the 6-foot distance when you are in public spaces, and ensuring that you take a little bit of initiative, especially at this time. If you weren't motivated prior to the fatalities that we've recorded this week, or the numbers that we're starting to see with the increase in cases, hopefully you are now so motivated to take steps to protect yourself and your families as we continue the fight against COVID-19. Do not get complacent. If you are going to work, if your employer requires you to report for work, we do encourage you to adhere to the protocols, even in your workspaces. Your colleagues, your friends are coming from different parts of the island, and there is still a lot of uncertainty and investigation ongoing to determine the links of COVID-19. And so pending such, it is the responsibility of us all to ensure that we wear our masks when we are in close proximity to others, that we observe the 6-foot distance, physical distance, and that we wash our hands frequently and use copious amounts of hand sanitizer to stop COVID-19 in its tracks. Reminder, 148 cases registered here in St. Lucia, and this week things took a turn. We did register the first fatalities associated to COVID-19, and we did have a press conference convened by the health authorities on the way forward in terms of determining the connections to COVID-19 and the deaths. And we do encourage you to take some time to go onto the NTN Facebook page or our YouTube channel, or stay tuned to NTN as we incorporate that press conference into our programming. It is important that we understand the figures, the individuals, the number of persons who are now isolated, who are being observed, the individuals who are in care right now, the number of cases St. Lucia has registered to date. To give us a clear picture of where we're at, and to give us a clear picture of where we're at, and to muster our own initiative to do our part, however small. The world and many countries are going through second waves of the coronavirus, and we're seeing lockdowns the world over. And this period, with the 30 days that we're being called upon to exercise extreme precaution at this time as it pertains to the measures for COVID-19, we hope that everybody plays their part so we can see some degree of abatement where this virus is concerned. If you're just joining us, a special good morning to you. We are coming to you live from downtown Castries, the Parliament building. This is day 3 of the parliamentary sitting. After 2 days of convening, the lower house convening, we have day 3, the sitting of the upper house, the Senate, meeting today. We've so far been able to identify the leader of government business in the Senate, Honorable Mary Isaac, Senator Mary Isaac, as well as the leader of the opposition in the Senate as well. We do now see persons getting seated, and we are on standby for the commencement of today's proceedings. Do stay tuned to NTN. Now take you back to studio until the start of the sitting of Senate. Okay. And we are back live, coming to you from the Parliament building in downtown Castries, where we will be seeing the third day of parliamentary sittings. The last 2 days, that was November 10th and November 11th, we had the sittings of the lower house, that is the House of Assembly, going over papers laid by the ministers of government as well as motions. Two lead motions forwarded by the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, and also 4 bills being tabled by the same said Prime Minister and the Minister for Tourism. In the sitting of the upper house today, we'll be seeing the government ministers also forwarding these papers, statutory instruments, as well as the motions. And just to go over the motions, be it resolved that Parliament by affirmation resolution approves the draft value-added tax rate of tax tourism sector goods and services order to vary the rate of tax for goods and services provided by a hotel and other providers in the tourism sector to set the rate of tax for tourism sector goods and services as follows. And that is the rate of 7% tax applying with regard to a supply of tourism accommodation service, and the rate of 10% tax applying with regard to the supply of food and beverages, water sports, tours conducted by land, air, or sea within St. Lucia, and admission to heritage sites and other touristic attractions. Also be it resolved that the Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow an amount of US $30 million from the CDB, consisting of a special funds resources portion in the amount of US $10,800,000 and an ordinary capital resources portion in the amount of $19,200,000 US for the purpose of financing the implementation of policy reform initiatives designed to support St. Lucia's COVID-19 crisis response. We are now gearing for the commencement of the sitting of the Senate with the entrance of the President of the Senate at this point in time.
Your loving kindness towards us. And we ask, O God, for your continued strength for those who have lost loved ones in this pandemic. We ask for your strength, your comfort, and your grace towards the family. And we ask you continue to rest your hands upon us as a nation, as you guide us and lead us through these difficult times. So thank you for your richest mercy towards us as a nation. Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thy unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultation, and grant that we have in thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, and the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public will, peace, and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and the knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost be with us all evermore. Amen.
Oath of new senators.
With your right hand and right hand. If you check, when you finish, you give it a pen to sign.
I, Terence Kent Sinclair, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God.
Just use your right hand, okay? I, Lisa Cassandra Jawahir, do solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. I do affirm. Go to the other side.
I, Jacinta Lee, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, and I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God.
I, Marcella Johnson, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God.
Announcements. Good morning, Senators. I beg to report that I have received correspondence from the Speaker of the House of Assembly that the following motions and bills were passed in the House of Assembly and forwarded to the Senate for its concurrence. Value-added tax, resolution of Parliament to approve draft value-added tax, rate of tax, tourism sector goods and services order. Finance Administration Act, resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital expenditure, COVID-19 crisis response. Finance Administration Act, resolution to authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee borrowing by the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority from a syndicate of banks led by the Bank of St. Lucia Limited to finance the Hiwanora International Airport Redevelopment Project. Public Finance Management, Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment, St. Lucia Tourism Authority Amendment, Tourism Levy. I have received a letter of excuse from Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis stating that she is unable to attend today's sitting due to bereavement. I have also received a letter of excuse from Senator Dr. Vincent Adrian Auger informing that he is in isolation in accordance with COVID-19 protocols. Newly appointed senators, you have taken your place amongst us this morning. The Senate is the chamber of sober second thought. Order and decorum must be preserved. But remember also that this chamber must also allow for robust exchange and passionate debate. And so I extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to you, Senator Jawahir, Senator Sinclair, Senator Lee, and Senator Johnson. I trust that your sojourn with us will be productive and very enjoyable. Senators, I'd like to extend sincere condolences to Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis, Deputy President of the Senate, and family on the passing of Ashanti Kimani Riviere. He was the son of Senator Thomas Francis. He was buried on Monday, November 9th, 2020. Senator Francis has asked me to convey her thanks to the parliamentarians and to the office of the Parliament for their overwhelming support during this time. Our sincere condolences go to the family of the late Oswald Wilkinson Larcher, who died on Tuesday, 10th November 2020. We have lost a dedicated son of the soil. Mr. Larcher was a prominent attorney at law and a sportsman. He was a colleague, friend, and former teacher of mine. He will be sorely missed. On behalf of the Parliament, we wish his family God's strength and guidance. Statements from ministers. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Good morning, guests of the Senate, media, staff of the Senate, leader of the opposition, our Attorney General and his staff, fellow senators, Madam President.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Sorry, Madam President, old habits die hard. I wish to welcome the new senators who are here with us this morning, who have just been sworn in, as well as our returning temporary senators. Madam President, this morning I want to express my deepest condolences to my fellow Senator, Mauricia Thomas Francis, and to all her family and friends on the passing of her dearly beloved son. He is at rest now, Madam President, no more pain. May his soul rest in peace. Since the onset of COVID-19, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has taken every precaution to save lives. Our frontline workers have gone above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that they provide the necessary care for all our people. Friends of St. Lucia, our diplomatic corps, our fellow brothers and sisters in the diaspora, all have put their best foot forward to assist us in whatever way they can. Once we were one of the best in our management of COVID-19. But now, we are having sad days in St. Lucia. Fair Helen is not well, Madam President. On November 10th, 2020, Fair Helen took a turn for the worse when we lost two of our sons of the soil. They were fathers to children, brothers, uncles, cousins, to a lot of people. We lost them to COVID-19, our first two casualties in St. Lucia. I, for one, Madam President, will miss all the prayers that Pastor Emmanuel could have been here to give. May the good Lord bless his soul. And my lawyer and friend, Mr. Wilkie Larcher, who filled me in on all those years when I was out of St. Lucia that I missed in the political arena. Dear God, will I ever miss his jokes, the history of our country that he knew so well, he who always had time to spare. No hurry, no rush. That was our Wilkie Larcher. Madam President, I have to ask, what is happening to Fair Helen? May the souls of our dearly departed rest in peace. I will say no more.
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Good morning to all. Madam President, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the newly installed senators from the opposition side. I had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Juwai sometime in Guyana for a youth council, and we had some good interaction. So welcome. I have my friend Heskini. We go a long way at St. Mary's College. I think I was his house captain. So welcome. And remember, I'm still your captain. Madam President, I also want to join you and the leader of government business in paying my respects to our Senator, Mauricia Thomas Francis, on the loss of her son. I knew that she loved this son extremely. It's difficult for me to speak because I can really feel her pain, and I want to tell her that the Lord will continue to bless her. I also want to make mention of Mr. Wilkie Larcher. From another time, we were buddies, we were colleagues, and we remained friends regardless. And that was the measure of the man, that he never mixed politics. He was always a gentle soul. I knew him because I was an ardent sportsman, and he was the president of the Football Association. So all sports personnel in St. Lucia will miss Mr. Larcher. Mr. Larcher was also a lawyer, and he was a mediator, so we are going to miss him dearly. I also want to mention Mr. Oliver Scott Jr., another champion when it came to sports. Oliver was very involved in cricket administration. When we look at the Mindufile Park, he did the drainage for Mindufile Park, which really improved the standard of the ground. And I want to thank him for what he did, and to tell the family to hold on strong. I also want to talk about Mrs. Dujon, who was the former principal of the George Odlum Secondary School. This lady was a very dedicated educator. So as her husband, Mr. Dujon. So I then move on to persons who are extremely close to me. Inspector Augustus Lawrenson, also known as Lam, or Kissing Police Officer. And he exemplified what police officers need to do. That you have to be firm, fair, but you have to be approachable. And every time that this inspector walked the streets of Castries and he met a young lady, he would kiss her on the cheek. And everybody realized that he was a really, really community person. But I miss him dearly. Sergeant Henry was a police officer for a long time. He was a court orderly. And so my prayers with all of those families. Madam President, on the last occasion in this August House, I made comments on the issue of crime. I indicated that when there is a perceived increase in crime, we have the usual call from the opposition and members of the public, blaming the government, the minister with responsibility for home affairs, and the commissioner of police for their inability to stop crime. The opposition always uses the refrain that the Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chastity promised to stop crime because Kenny Anthony could not. This is so pathetic for intelligent people to peddle. My recollection of the pronouncements made by the Honorable Prime Minister was that the police force was neglected. The conditions at the police stations were horrible, and therefore it was not conducive for efficient and effective policing. He promised to make the lives and the work of police much more pleasing and comfortable, which would definitely improve on the efficiency and effectiveness, thereby assisting in the reduction of criminal activity in our country. With respect to the minister, there are some persons, especially the member of the Law House for Castries South, who are of the opinion that the minister has failed in stemming the incidences of criminal activity. He posited that when I was the Deputy Police Commissioner, I was very effective and successful in the fight against crime. But as the minister, I am the worst. The member is entitled to his opinion, but as an individual who holds a doctorate, he would note that that the only way you can show that you are correct is by stating points to prove your assertion. In my language class at the University of the West Indies, I was taught that if you are going to make a statement that is correct, then your premise must be factual, if your conclusion has to be true. His premise that I was successful in dealing with crime as Deputy Commissioner, therefore as Minister for National Security, I must stop crime. It is similar to making the premise that all movie stars live in Hollywood. Therefore, Brad Pitt is a movie star. Therefore, Brad Pitt lives in Hollywood. We all know that is false, that movie stars live all over the world. So he started with a false premise and he got a false conclusion. But if we say that all men are mortal, Peter is a man, Therefore, Peter is mortal. It is correct. Because we all know that all men are mortal. So your premise is correct. So your conclusion will be correct. The Prime Minister and myself, with the help of the Commissioner of Police and the President of the Welfare Association, have worked hand in hand to improve the lot of police. And as such, they are better off than where they were between 2011 and 2016. There are some of the items and issues dealt with for the police. One, the number of new motor vehicles, number of new motorcycles, the renovation of several police stations, including major works at Soufrière, new outboard engines for the marine boats, installation of high-definition CCTV cameras within the city and on the highway up to Grosile, the reopening of the forensic lab, repair of the radar system in the south of the island, the new rank structure approved in the police force, new promotion guidelines, new use of force policy, new health insurance policy of over $400,000. So if a police officer unfortunately loses his life in the line of duty, his family is entitled to over $400,000. If a police officer gets injured in the line of duty, he can now access medical attention at the Tapia Hospital, and up to $200,000 of medical care can be given to him. Tax-free vehicles for police officers, special arrangements made for police officers to do in-house training to get their firearm licenses. The only aspect that is missing in the professional training that is necessary for the advancement of our police officers. I have explained the reason why this is so. I will not go into details at this time. The Commissioner and his officers have continued to perform extremely well. They have been able to bring down the rate of crime. I know that there are persons who will be skeptical about that statement, but it's a fact. Currently reported crimes are 13.6% below 2018 figures and 15.6% 2019 figures. So at this time, Madam President, I would like to present it because you know people are skeptical. You say something and they don't believe you. These are the facts. So I would like for the document to be circulated and so that everyone will see that what I am saying is correct. This year at this time compared to last year, all we have is the homicides. And we know every time an homicide occurs that there's this joke reaction that things are bad. Crime is on the uprise. And I agree that we have to stem the number of our young people who are dying on the streets. But the police have been very successful in solving most of the homicides. We have persons charged, but some suspects themselves are part of the statistics. Our solve rate is over 60%, the best in the Caribbean. These times are not normal times, especially for the police. COVID has placed tremendous pressure on our officers, who now have to police the protocols put in place to control the spread. Some stations have been impacted with officers themselves being exposed and having to go into quarantine as a precautionary measure. Yet, the remaining police officers continue to work without any complaints. I salute these hardworking and selfless police officers. As for this minister, his work is clear for all to see. The fire service, when we came in, was in shambles. Right now, the fire service is settled and composed. A new fire chief employed, a deputy chief. The structure is being now looked at the public service, and all is well with the fire service. Heads of department meeting monthly, and I have done that so that there is synergy between every department. So on a monthly basis, the Commissioner of Police, the Fire Chief, the PS Home Affairs, the PS Justice, the Forensic Director, the DPP, and other persons come to meet and we brainstorm So it's not only the minister that's doing anything. I work through people. I get things done through people by empowering them. As such, I do not have to deal with legal challenges from persons I work with. The member for Castries South needs to tell us how many, as CEO, how many cases that he has had. Check my record at Windjammer Landing, and it speaks volumes for itself. I have been able to implement the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Act, enacted since the 31st of December 2014. The Parole Board, found in the Criminal Code, Chapter 3.01 of the Revised Laws of St. Lucia, since the 31st of December 2013. As we can see, the SLP was the party in office when those pieces of legislation were passed. It took this minister to implement them. I want the member for Castries South to point out one major achievement of the former minister. I only utilize the services of one police officer and not 6 like his colleague did. I wish to end my presentation by making reference to an African saying, and I quote, "If you are filled with pride, then you will have no room for wisdom." I thank you, Madam President.
Papers to be laid. Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 151 of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing Order. Statutory Instrument Number 152 of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Wearing of Mask Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 153 of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Prohibition of Assembly Order. Statutory Instrument Number 154 of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Declaration of Quarantine Facility Order. Statutory Instrument Number 155 of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Approval of Tests for COVID-19 and Designation of Laboratory Order. Statutory Instrument Number 157 of 2020, Legal Profession Eligibility Lorianne Felicia Tugwell Order. Statutory Instrument Number 158 of 2020, Legal Profession Eligibility David Robert Kitson Sharp Order. Statutory Instrument Number 159 of 2020, Legal Profession Eligibility Jordan Alexander James Jarrett Order. Statutory Instrument Number 160 of 2020, Legal Profession Eligibility Candace Renee Fletcher Order. Statutory Instrument Number 161 of 2020, Price Control Amendment Number 15 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 162 of 2020, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 14 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 162A of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Fees Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 163 of 2020, Legal Profession Eligibility Kimberly K. Williams Order. Statutory Instrument Number 163A of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 163B of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Prohibition of Assembly Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 164 of 2020, Customs Duties Amendment of Schedule 4, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 165 of 2020, Fiscal Incentives Blue Waters St. Lucia Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 165A of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Restriction of Access to Area Order, Statutory Instrument Number 165B of 2020, COVID-19, Prevention and Control, Physical Distancing Number 2 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 165C of 2020, COVID-19, Prevention and Control, Prohibition of Assembly Number 2 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 166 of 2020, Price Control Amendment Number 16 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 167 of 2020, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 15 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 171 of 2020, Companies Amendment Regulations, Report of the Parliamentary Commissioner 2017 to 2019, St. Lucia Bureau of Standards Annual Report 2018 to 2019.
Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, responsible for culture and creative industries.
I don't know what happened here, Madam President. I can't seem to get my mask off my glasses. Okay, almost there. Okay, thank you very much. Madam President, I just beg your indulgence a bit to welcome, of course, our colleague senators opposite, and I'm always heartened when I see young women, come to the fore, and it's always an exciting time, to see women who give themselves off to serve our country, and come in that vein to make that contribution, because St. Lucia is not an easy place to work, and when women decide to come through to the fore, I think it says great things about them. And so we look forward to the discourse as we go through the process. And of course, I want to welcome the other senators as well. Madam President, let me take this opportunity also to formally extend sincere condolences to our senator. You've done that earlier, but I want to also do that personally because I know the family on both sides. And I think it's important that I do this here. I also want to note that we've lost 5 sports persons in the last 6 weeks. And persons who have contributed significantly to that spirit of volunteerism that we need to continue to propel this country forward. We lost Brian Walcott, who served as the secretary for the Athletics Association, and he did so at a time when we hosted a major games, which is the Texaco Games in the early 90s. And that must be acknowledged because there were lots of young people who for the first time got the opportunity to represent St. Lucia right here in St. Lucia. We also lost Mr. Oswald Wilkie Larcher, and of course we all know the background of Ozzy and all the work that he had done in sports, particularly cricket, and of course track and field with the Lancer Sports Club. We lost Pastor Cornelius Emmanuel, a stalwart in the faith and belief, in our society, the Adventist faith. 25,000 of them across the country are mourning because of the untimely death of this gentleman, and of course the nature of his death as well, and being the first St. Lucian, to have passed in this way. So I think the entire fraternity is grieving, and we really want to extend our condolences to them. And we also lost my good friend Oliver Scott, who always never hesitated to have an argument on any issue. And of course, Scotty has been a cricketer, also an administrator for a number of years, but more importantly for me, he was one of the first administrators to introduce T20 to St. Lucia. When the world was not looking at T20, Oliver Scott felt, given the fact that we didn't have lighting in St. Lucia, on the playing fields, he would introduce 2020 so the clubs would get to play, you understand, in any one day and finish their series. It seemed a joke at the time to the cricketers, but I think eventually they realized once the ICC endorsed it, the guy had a little vision around sport. And so we want to extend our condolences to all of them and their families. and to tell them to just continue to trust in the mighty God, because He is great and He can remove mountains. Madam President, I am here and I want to beg to move the following papers in my name. Statutory Instrument number 168 of 2020, the Tourism Stimulus and Investment Union Hilltop Paradise Villas Order. Statutory Instrument number 169 of 2020, Tourism Incentives First Class Transportation Service Order. And Statutory Instrument number 170 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment Herba Limited Order. Thank you.
Motions. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital expenditure, Village Tourism Initiative. Whereas it is provided by Section 39(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, the Act, that the Minister of Finance may, by resolution of Parliament, borrow money from the bank or other financial institution for the capital expenditure of government. And whereas it is further provided by Section 42(1) of the Act, that there shall be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund debt charges for which the government is liable. And whereas the Minister of Finance considers it necessary to borrow an amount of $3,750,000 from the CARICOM Development Fund for the purpose of providing financial assistance to support the implementation of the Village Tourism Initiative by enhancing specified infrastructure and supporting eligible small and medium-sized enterprises. And whereas the interest is payable at a rate of 3% per annum on the amount of the loan withdrawn and outstanding from the loan account. And whereas the loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal on consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the 30th day of March, 30th day of June, 30th day of September, and 30th day of December, commencing A, on the first due date after the expiration of 2 years following the date of the disbursement of the loan, or B, on a latter due date as specified in writing by the CARICOM Development Fund. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow an amount of $3,750,000 from the CARICOM Development Fund for the purpose of providing financial assistance to support the implementation of the Village Tourism Initiative by enhancing specified infrastructure and supporting eligible small and medium-sized enterprises. Be it further resolved that A, interest is repayable at a rate of 3% per annum on the amount of the loan withdrawn and outstanding from the loan account, and B, the loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the 30th day of March, 30th day of June, 30th day of September, and 30th day of December, commencing I, on the first due date after the expiry of 2 years following the date of the disbursement of the loan, or II, on a latter due date as specified in writing by the CARICOM Development Fund. Madam President, this is a money bill, and as such, I am presenting this bill for approval of this Honorable House.
Senators, the question is that Parliament authorize the Minister of Finance to borrow an amount of US $3,750,000 from the CARICOM Development Fund for the purpose of providing financial assistance to the support of the implementation of the Village Tourism Initiative by enhancing specified infrastructure and supporting eligible small and medium-sized enterprises. Be it further resolved that A, interest is repayable at a rate of 3% per annum on the amount of the loan withdrawn and outstanding from the loan account, and B, the loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the 30th day of March, 30th day of June, 30th day of September, and 30th day of December, commencing 1 on the first due date after the expiry of 2 years following the date of the disbursement of the loan, or 2 on a later due date as specified in writing by the CARICOM Development Fund. Senator Jawa here.
Madam President, I am indeed humbled by this opportunity today and wish to thank the Leader of the Opposition of the St. Lucia Labour Party, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, for the confidence and trust he has placed in me to serve the people of St. Lucia. Madam President, I also wish to thank my parents, David and Ursula, my brothers, Sheldon and Eric, and my partner, Kenson, for supporting my journey, as is evident by their presence here today. I also wish to thank members of the Parliamentary Office for their warm welcome and hospitality thus far as I have taken up this new role. Madam President, I would also like to take a minute to express my sincere condolences to Senator Thomas on the passing of her son, as she could not be here with us today, and to the families who have lost their loved ones due to the COVID-19 virus. Madam President, this really is a time for every single one of us to reflect on how we have been living, the things we may have done to put others at risk, and decide now that as we move on, we will all play our part to fight this virus, because, Madam President, COVID knows no color. Madam President, I wish to express that I am always in support of initiatives that will develop the people of St. Lucia. I believe that it is necessary to strengthen and stimulate our local economy, and I take this opportunity to share my views and concerns on the resolution put before us today, where the government aims to borrow US $3.75 million, or about 10 million EC, to finance the village tourism project. Now, Madam President, I believe that a lot can be done to diversify our tourism products, where our people will be the major beneficiaries. But, Madam President, as I look at the damage that we have been experiencing in St. Lucia, the damage to the sustainability of our tourism market, I am also very concerned of the timing to borrow such an amount and the actual motivations behind this project at this time, where our country is experiencing a crisis, where even the Prime Minister admitted in his recent UN address that small island states like ours are least likely to get debt relief. Yet, we are putting ourselves in more debt without sharing a plan on how we are going to recover. So, Madam President, we were reminded by the Leader of the Opposition at a recent sitting, the one before, that this village tourism project has been on the table and has been a promise made by the government since 2017, about 4 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, we are seeing a rush to borrow, to implement different projects, rushing of bills, and we are approaching, or rather we are in an election period. So how much will be accomplished or implemented before the next general election? Madam President, a village tourism initiative in a COVID-19 world, it almost seems bizarre when a major part of our target audience will be tourists. how does this really make sense? Where are the tourists, and who really will be benefiting from this project? We just cannot guarantee the numbers. And the government spoke of providing assistance to our locals to develop their tourism product, but how really are we going to sustain it? Madam President, many of these vendors and service people, as we know, will need to start all over. The Chamber of Commerce made a statement last month in October that over 30% of its members would already have to close their business. Now we are approaching the end of November, so you can imagine how many other businesses have had to close. So those who would probably get this assistance would most likely have to start all over. Now, the biggest question the government should be answering is how are these businesses going to sustain themselves when it has been predicted that there will not be a quick recovery in the tourism industry worldwide for the next few years? Madam President, this really makes one question the reasoning and trustworthiness of this government, who has waited again at the last minute to borrow when all else has failed. DSH, we see the horses have gone home. Cabot fiasco, which has again shown our people that foreigners have been prioritized over their needs. It really makes you wonder. And someone met me during the last time that this bill was presented and asked if this is just another election gimmick, where at the dawn of an election, we will see projects happening here and there, which will try to fool the people. Madam President, I don't know, but these are the concerns and thoughts of our voters. Last-minute projects, Madam President, and I will tell you what this government has done as it relates to village tourism. This government has killed village tourism for our people, just like Five to Stay Alive is dead, as the leader of the opposition once stated. Village tourism was killed by this UWP administration, Madam President. Do you remember the Heritage Tourism Project, which was initially started by the St. Lucia Labour Party? Roads to the waterfalls, the sky rides in Babonneau, ancillary fish fry, that's village tourism. Dennery Fish Fiesta, that is also village tourism. All of which provided opportunities for our local vendors to make a living, not just appealing to the foreign market, but also appealing to our local people. The Heritage Tourism Project created opportunities for cultural development locally, something that we are seeing has been lacking for years now. Now, when you go to Dennery, all you can see is maybe 2 or 3 vendors selling outside of their homes. Village tourism already existed, but it has been killed. And it is a shame that even in the constituency of ancillary, with a sitting parliamentary representative, the ancillary fish fry still cannot even take off. And I am talking about before COVID. Now, 4 years later, we're still hearing of village tourism. And we must ask ourselves, why? Why is it coming up year after year after year, and at this time? What happened over those 4 years, Madam President? What happened with the 13 million in 2008 that was borrowed to finance this very same project? In March 2018, the CARICOM Development Fund provided a grant of $324,000 to establish the framework for village tourism. Now tell me, where the money gone? But it's borrow, 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 and we have to ask ourselves, what will this 3.75 million US be used for? Madam President, I really believe, and it's sad to say, that all of this is arbitrary. To try to raise the expectations of our electorate, to make them think that this government is about to do something. False hope and false promises over and over, year after year, that this same village tourism project will be launched. And I recall one of the parliamentary representatives make a comment on the development of a tourism initiative in Forestier. And I can tell you, moi ja lastan sa, because it is the same thing We're still waiting on that development because we have been hearing about it. Metale lakaini a lot sod turning. The same member spoke of building a market in Bexor that will service tourists who come from the north or the south of the island. And as some of you may or may not know, Castries Southeast is the one constituency that you will have to pass through, whether you pass along the west coast or the east coast to get to the north or the south of the island. A market in Bexor, but where are the numbers to sustain this initiative when families are crying because they have lost their jobs, jobs that depended solely on the tourism industry? What really, again I have to ask, is the reasoning behind borrowing this money at this time? How are we going to sustain those enterprises when spending is now at an all-time low? Madam President, as a young business owner, I can speak firsthand of the effects of COVID-19 and how challenging it has been to sustain. The young people out there will tell you that they are very concerned about the future of their businesses, some of which again depended solely on tourism. Spending is not likely to be the same as persons are still recovering from this COVID blow. The creatives who depended on the entertainment industry in the hotels, most of them are young people, small craft vendors, restaurant and bar owners. They are still suffering. Madam President, we have been suffering, and COVID has just magnified what we have been feeling for a very long time. Our people have been begging for a piece of bread that this government should have been working hard to supply, but all we see is resources continuously being distributed among friends, and the small man cannot eat. Madam President, we need to know how this government is going to rebuild our economy. How are they going to create linkages among our local entrepreneurs through diverse means, rather than solely depending on the tourists to come to St. Lucia? We need to take a look and analyze those niche markets that exist outside of our country, formulate initiatives and services, and think of those export services that will appeal to those markets when there is so much uncertainty as to the forecasting of our tourism numbers, where trends show that travel has become less affordable. The spending power of people globally has decreased, as some have lost their jobs, and I have said before, some of them have experienced pay cuts. Madam President, we must reimagine how we will thrive, how we will manage this recovery in a way that doesn't just appeal to few, and I say very few, who wish to engage in leisure travel at this moment, but to show people how tourism initiatives can be diversified and economically viable. This government must take time to rethink its position on tourism rather than rushing projects with no plan and no recovery. Now, Madam President, a forecast by McKinsey & Company, a reputable strategic management and consultancy firm that advises corporations and governments worldwide, has predicted that it will take about 4 to 7 years to return to tourism levels similar to what we even experienced in 2019. A once $9 trillion market, and we cannot show our people how we intend to be innovative and diverse in our approach to improve their standard of living. These are the times that we are living in, Madam President, times of fear and uncertainty, and you would realize that even locally, our leisure time, our work time has moved quickly into virtual worlds, far less for the tourists. Madam President, it just really is confusing to me. And I can only imagine for the people who are tuning in today from their homes, those who stop me when I walk through the city and ask me about the intention of all of this borrowing, when they themselves don't even know how they are going to feed their families. They ask, why isn't this money being invested in our education system, in agriculture, where we can engage in developing certain crops and export? But tourism is what we know, so we are sticking to that. Madam President, this lack of foresight, lack of diversity, lack of innovation, lack of transparency continues to be brought to light, where we see once again that the government fails year after year to deliver on its promises to our people. This is the time for us to make things better for them. And I appeal for consideration on diversing our efforts and not just putting all of our eggs in one basket. Thank you.
Let the record state that this was the maiden submission by Senator Jawahir. Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, and Creative Industries, responsible for culture and creative industries.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I want to commend the Senator on her maiden address. But again, I was appalled because it was more of the same thing that we've heard over and over, you understand, from the opposition. So I guess birds of a feather flock together. And so my expectation was a bit dashed here. But this investment in the village tourism project that our government is seeking to make will provide support to improve, and just for your edification, to improve our community's infrastructure around heritage, natural assets, and in general add value to the development of our communities. In addition, it places the small man at the center of our community development. That is what this project is designed to do. Madam President, our country is one of the most scenic and beautiful countries in the world. Additionally, we have a rich history and culture. While those who have been opposite, and I guess I can say this, you know, are on the bandwagon of gloom and doom, with those who claim that St. Lucia was the worst prepared for COVID. Under this government of the United Workers' Party, we have ensured that our country's reputation is intact globally, and we have paved the way so that when the industry gets going again, you all want us to sit and wait for it? We're not sitting and waiting for it. We're doing the work that is required to ensure that when the industry gets going again, St. Lucia can be high on the agenda of many travelers across the world. And if you know citizens of the world, the global world, the world that I belong to, we love to travel. We love to experience different things. We love to go places and broaden our horizons. And so we expect people to want to come to this beautiful place that was able to do so well in the initial stages of the management of COVID. We've set the agenda, and we expect people to respond to us. So that's point one. Madam President, it is with this level of optimism, compounded by the great leadership of our Prime Minister, who happens to be here today with us. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for being here. You know, it's this type of leadership, yeah, that we are pursuing the agenda in our National Building Trust around tourism. So, Madam President, we are now moving ahead, investing and facilitating our people with village tourism so that the more of our local citizens can become involved and benefit from the industry. That is what it is. In the past, all we knew was the big hotels. But we know when we look at what tourism does, and when we say tourism, we don't just talk about visitors coming from abroad. We're talking about local people being visitors in different parts of the country. And this is very important, Madam President, because, you know, some time ago I met a principal of a school. Principal of a school in the city had not been to Soufrière for over 30 years. But you're teaching children. You're teaching them to explore. And you yourself have not been out of your community. You've not been beyond the Mon for so many years. And so this is what the essence of village tourism is all about. getting us moving again and getting other people coming to our shows to enjoy it. So we are doing so while there are those who are stirring up the passions of their supporters, and I could see it still through the militancy and rebellion, caring less about what is happening in this COVID environment. Madam President, our recent history shows that tourism was the main economic pillar supporting the economy of St. Lucia and the main revenue earner. The reality is, it is our best hope. When you look at it now, we've been sitting here and looking, but it is still our best hope. It is still our best hope. There is no running away from it. We have everything it takes, from the rich agricultural soils and natural beauty to the rich cultural heritage, and most importantly, a hospitable and friendly people. In fact, our local tourism market is still very much untapped. And it is our hope that this village tourism industry will thrive in the post-COVID era. And we are confident about that. Madam President, my government remains committed to ensuring that the proceeds from the tourism trickles down to as many members of our local communities as possible. So they too will have a share in the economic pie and benefit from the revenue stream. Madam President, village tourism has been a plan of my government from 2016. From 2016, we were very clear that village tourism was the answer for us. Several interventions have already happened, just for your edification, as part of the preparatory stage for this initiative. A number of milestones have been achieved, and that's how you do things. You plan systematically, and planning systematically and ensuring that you go through all the processes, you try to ensure that you get sustainability every step of the way. And so what we saw in the past was not sustainable, and we'll come to that. So we have had a consultancy to determine the full scope of the program. We've had consultations with key organizations and communities, and we have done an assessment of key community infrastructure and have had community engagement, along with the OAS and Cultural Development Foundation. We also undertook training with persons representing the various local institutions, with particularly those agencies that proclaim their passion for our country, its people, its history, its culture, and its natural beauty. That training was in data collection and photo voice, all in preparation for the robust village tourism product that will be pursued. We also found time to get our communities to know what assets that they had, and the value of getting people involved in that process and in the business of tourism. My government has also developed draft legislation for village tourism, which will soon be presented to this Parliament. As I speak, designs for community infrastructure upgrading are being finalized for the pilot communities of Rosalie, Ancillary, and Soufrière. These achievements or milestones took time to be realized, and if village tourism is expected to be sustainable and, more importantly, impact our people in a meaningful way, we must be very thorough in our approach to it. We must be very thorough. Madam President, Ancillary, according to the poverty assessment, is classified as one of the poorest communities in St. Lucia. The community has been bypassed for visitors en route to Soufrière. Everybody's just heading to Soufrière. Ancillary has been in the way, but we've not done anything much to ensure that we entice and do things to keep people there. Village tourism provides the opportunity for visitors to stop in Ancillary and enjoy the quaint village and its unique attributes. That's what it will do. Madam President, the investment in village tourism is now necessary so that we can support and establish entrepreneurs and businesses within our communities for the global marketplace, for the future and the post-COVID future. Madam President, this case was powerful before COVID, and in this case, it's even more powerful. Madam President, the Village Tourism Initiative is a vehicle through which government intends to build local inclusion within the tourism industry, reduce unemployment, increase self-sufficiency, and improve linkages. Madam President, successive governments, have contributed to heritage tourism. And you heard the young lady articulate what was there: ancillary fish fry, dennery fish fry, La Pointe Libai, Mandela. Oh yes, the senator, sorry. My apologies, sincere apologies, my dear. Yes, sincere apologies.
Senators, it is for me to correct the minister on that regard. Senator, we're all senators in here, not a young lady or a young man.
Madam, you're very blurry. I didn't hear your contribution. I didn't hear you.
We are all senators,
Yes.
not young ladies or young men.
Yes. Point well taken. Thank you, Madam, for the correction. But, Madam President, I was saying successive governments have contributed to the heritage tourism. Heritage tourism, ancillary fish fry, you heard you. And the senator opposite articulated some of them very well. But the objective of my government has been the people at the core. The people at the core. And therefore, we have kept as much as possible reinvesting in the communal activities and products established under heritage tourism. We have been supporting. Madam President, while heritage tourism programs provided grants to individuals to develop their sites and attractions, most of these sites have not been sustainably upgraded. They've not done so themselves. And so, notwithstanding this, my government has provided support where possible. Madam President, but the chronic difference between heritage tourism and heritage tourism and what is being proposed by my government is that village tourism builds entrepreneurship. Madam President, for village tourism, my government will provide access to low interest financing for solutions to develop accommodation properties, restaurants, bars, etc. The idea is that if visitors stay within communities, and the visitors, of course, could be locals who look to visit communities or foreigners, they will access the products and services of the immediate community, thereby causing more services and products to springboard. So, Madam President, the global pandemic has taught us that now more than ever, we need to ensure a few things. Food security. We have to eat what we grow, take our farms to our tables. Environmental protection, empowerment of our local communities, creating the opportunity for our citizens to earn foreign exchange, we must. Ensuring that more tourism revenue stays in country and spreads through communities as much as possible. We must do those things for people to survive. Those core pursuits are intrinsic to the development of each village becoming a united cluster of enterprises where we build our villages and communities to offer to the world unique and authentic experiences based on their specific strengths, locations, and authenticity. So our farmers, our artisans, our entertainers, our restaurants, our bars, our homes, our guest houses, heritage and cultural sites, our natural attractions, they all become part of the benefits, of that tourism product that we are trying to instill. And Madam President, I could say a lot more, about the village tourism project, but this is in essence what it is that we are doing. We are creating an environment where many of our citizens can participate and benefit and develop the various skill sets within community to strengthen community so that all in community can benefit. We have that responsibility, and this COVID environment provides the right type of environment for us to continue to do the work that is required to build St. Lucia in the way that we are supposed to. So with those few words, Madam President, I just want to say I endorse, this resolution, and we look forward to great work coming through from the village tourism team within the Ministry of Tourism. I thank you.
Senator Sinclair.
Madam President and fellow senators. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Senator, Madam President, and fellow senators, guests, media personnel present. Even before my maiden presentation, I ask leave of you, Madam President, to extend condolences to the two families, the relatives and lost ones of our first COVID-19 deaths on island. Together with sincere get-well wishes to the patients now quarantined and in isolation at designated medical facilities and at home. I also want to extend personal condolences to Senator Thomas on her recent bereavement of her son. And although I did not know the senator personally and haven't benefited from the pleasure of meeting her, I have always been very impressed with her vivid and constructive contribution to the Senate. Also, Madam President, permit me through your good self to profoundly thank the leadership of our party on this side for affording me the opportunity of serving all the people of our country on this esteemed and well-regarded Senate floor, and investing in my ability to represent them here. So thus, my beloved people, some who have given me tremendous encouragement on my way here: Terence Ken Sinclair, also widely known as Skinny, reporting for national duty. In my stint here in the Senate, Madam President, I intend to always speak the truth. I intend to always speak the facts, and also, and importantly, I intend to always speak to my conscience. Firstly, Madam President, on the motion to borrow an amount of $3.75 million from the CARICOM Development Fund for implementation of Village Tourism Initiative by enhancing specified infrastructure and supporting small and medium-sized enterprises through funds set aside at the St. Lucia Development Bank. Madam President, I hail from the northern Mecca, the constituency of Grozile, which has been selected as one of the three prominent constituencies, the others being Ancillary and Soufriere, for preferential attention under this initiative. A total of 8 constituencies have been earmarked for consideration here and there. Consequently, I am very well aware of numerous attempts by previous administrations to initiate public-private partnerships to develop the Grozile waterfront. And these dreams have included boardwalk, jetties, groins, wave breakers, restrooms, etc. I think establishing a special development zone in that area with prescribed guidelines would be a good start. All well and good for the optimism expressed by opposing senator, but Madam President, like my fellow Senator Lisa Jawai so eloquently expressed, how many times do we have to pause and pause again before the movie is filmed? Consultancies from 2017, training in preparation, community engagement, talk, but nothing tangible to show for it.
Senator, if you wish to remove your mask to speak, feel free.
While such a village tourism initiative appears to be well-meaning in an attempt to boost and rev up the engine of the national economic machine, the SLP advocates a sensible and careful approach in ensuring that government-facilitated projects are undertaken in a sustainable manner. Our party is not at all anti-development, but actively encourages the use of helpful tools such as preliminary method statements, social and environmental impact assessments, historical reviews of the subject localities. And I say historical reviews, because it's documented here that we have a well-established archaeological and historical society. So there's no reason why projects undertaken, the likes of Cabot and special development zones at the foot of the pitons, shouldn't go through a rigorous process of assessment before they are implemented. Consequently, the present administration's attention is also drawn to the fact that the SLP, when in office, like my colleague highlighted, and I will reiterate for emphasis, implemented nature heritage tourism program, albeit under a different name, but Membet Mempwell. And these include a lot of the well-known tourism-based projects such as, like she said, the Skyride and Venture Tours in Chassin, Lucian Country House at Union, Latil Falls, Ancillary Fish Fry, and a number of nature trails across the island explored by visitors and locals alike. Note the language of the ruling government intends and continues to intend, after 4 years, give me a break. The theme therein advocated is we will, but when will we? I'm sorry, Madam Senator, but the bus is leaving the station and I'm afraid that you'll be left behind. An unbiased review of such success projects to be used as implementation models or templates would be very well advised. Madam President, in 1997, we must not forget that the SLP came into office and officiated over a transition from essentially what was a banana-based economy to the tourism-driven economy as we know it now, which we all glorify, but we all know where it started. Pity that the leader of the opposition has just stepped out. I would have given him some kudos. In the same breath, Madam President, through you, we would like to deliver some strong words of caution to the implementers of this initiative that we the people will be on the lookout of the bridge of our national ship Fair Helen, that the herein referenced specified infrastructure and eligible small and business enterprises are realized as conceived. Frankly, Madam President, there is a clarion call to the administrators at the top of the food chain that this village tourism initiative is not to be construed as a funding facility to advance causes of other unspecified activities. And that genuine tourism enhancement projects are expected to be implemented. We need very resilient, people-centered tourism projects. It reminds me of the group and the well-known song that says, I'll be watching you. Every step you take and every move you make, I'll be watching you. So, thus, this has been flagged and the initiatives will be monitored and reported back to the people. Without casting any particular aspersions, research has indicated that the village tourism initiative has been around as conceived by this administration for a while without having anything tangible to show for it. With these brief words of observation and caution, Madam President, I thank you.
Let the record reflect that this was the maiden submission by Senator Sinclair. Senators, when you address the Senate, you address the President of the Senate. You do not address members in the public galleries, and even yourselves, you address the President of the Senate, just to make that clear. Senator Pouliot.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to join my fellow colleagues in congratulating our newly appointed senators. And I also want to congratulate you on your fluent and eloquent presentations. Madam President, it was really not my intention to add my voice to the resolution that is being tabled. But having, please permit me. But having listened to the presentation of our senators, I feel compelled. I feel obligated to make my voice heard. Madam President, we are in a crisis. We all recognize that. St. Lucia is not the only country that is being devastated by the coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic. And it is the government of the day that must continue to carry its mandate. It must ensure that the citizenry receives the necessary support to navigate the harsh socio-economic pressures brought about by such a pandemic. Madam President, I too must applaud our members opposite for having recognized the significance of such an initiative, the Village Tourism Initiative. And this initiative promises small business owners, like one of our senators or one of our members opposite. You indicated that you are a young business woman. Interesting, commendable. And you too would recognize that this initiative is an opportunity for other business owners in villages and towns like Dennery, Ancillary, Soufrière, for instance. The support would receive the support that is necessary to thrive amidst the larger competitors. The benefits to be derived from such an initiative, Madam Chairperson, and I'm sure we would all agree, would be contributing to a resurgence in economic activity. And as more monies are being brought to the empty pockets of the people of this country, so too will the expenditure of this government be reduced, significantly reduced. So I do commend this government for this timely initiative. Madam President, the United Workers' Party administration listens to the plight of St. Lucians, and its relentless efforts are demonstrating to the people of St. Lucia that it cares about their well-being. This is a government that cares. the number of people, businessmen, businesswomen, people who have lost their jobs, who are calling for support. They need it. And it is the responsibility of the government that they elected into office to provide the support that they need. The support is provided. Members opposite have something negative to say. It's not provided. Members opposite have something negative to say. When are we going to put an end to this political divide and see, understand, and recognize the good intentions of this government to cushion the adverse effects of this crisis, of this pandemic? We need to keep our economy afloat. Our people need to be sustained. They must live. They must eat. They must survive, Madam President. And so to listen to the very same rhetoric, it reminds me, Madam President, of the expression, iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. The very same thing that has been heard, that has been presented out there, it is the very same that our new senators are coming with. Iron sharpens iron. Definitely, plastic cannot sharpen iron. Madam President, it is crystal clear that this resolution brought before Senate today, or just one of the resolutions, underscores the impressive fiscal management reputation of this government. The faith and confidence that many regional and international funding agencies have in this government is enviable. And you know what, Madam President? It is one that has not been matched by a St. Lucia Labour Party administration. This sound and efficacious fiscal management. So, stop talking about the borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. We do know, Madam President, that such an initiative is one that has been accounted for in the appropriation bill of 2020-2021. Contrary to this cliche that we're hearing, borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. This is what the members opposite fail to enlighten the citizenry of this country about. Instead, they cannot help but exercise that knack for political mischief. As I said, I'm going to reiterate. It is time for our members opposite to put down that political hat. That political divide, we need to be able to, we need to close it rather than widening this political divide. And to see the genuine efforts of this government and the progress it has and continues to make in transforming St. Lucia into a better country despite the odds that it faces. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. President, sorry.
Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, colleagues. Madam President, I beg leave of you before I get into the substantial matter before us this morning to acknowledge our newly sworn-in senators, to also acknowledge our temporary senators, and as well to say thank you to the previous two colleagues of mine who are no longer part of the Senate for their support and the way in which we work together as a team. I want to especially congratulate the two members here who have opened the batting quite well, and I wish them well. I also want to commend, for the first time I have been in the House in the company of Senator Polius for a presentation, although she said that she didn't intend to speak, but I saw a well-prepared speech being delivered. But that's okay. Madam President, I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for the additional responsibility that is placed on me in the Senate, and I intend to carry that responsibility with great regard for all of us and for the duties bestowed upon us. As was done before with our colleagues, Madam President, I want to join you and the rest of us in expressing condolences to a number of individuals. I want to start with our colleague, Senator Francis. I wish her well with her family. I also wish Senator Augier well. I was a classmate of Pastor Cornelius Emmanuel. We attended the same primary school from grade K to grade 6. He also worked with me at the Miku Secondary School for quite a few years. Good man. And at this time, it's a little emotional for me, but I wish his family well at this time. I also want to extend condolences to the family of Wilkie Larcher. His son was also a classmate of mine. So I wish Abera, Akim, and the family well, and I hope that they can pull through. We all remember him, as our colleague senators mentioned, as a sportsman. Worked very closely with him in the football administration during my years involved in football. I also want to extend condolences to Comrade Oliver Scott, as we have heard. I don't want to say much more about that in terms of his contribution to national sport. And as well to Mrs. Dujon and her family, who also served with me in the Principals Association for some years. So, Madam President, it has been a very tough last few weeks for all of us, and I believe that our country needs to stick together and give as much courage and as much encouragement as we can to all those families. On to the business of this morning's resolution. Madam President, you did in your brief remarks to our new senators, you did mention that you would like to see, or you encourage, passionate exchange and robust debate in this House, I think, if I quote you correctly. And I think so far this morning we've seen that, and I am very happy that I'm part of this honorable House, and I intend to continue to do just that. I want to say, Madam President, from the point of departure, that the borrowing of the 3.75 million, or what we can consider just over 10 million EC for the Village Tourism Initiative, is not a bad indication in any way that there is need for us to invest in village tourism. This opposition will never stand here and oppose any investment or any initiative that seeks to advance our cause in the area of village tourism. I am from a small rural community, and I would love to see that type of attitude being embraced where I'm from. So I will never stand here and say that we do not support village tourism as an opposition. However, Madam President, we have a responsibility to outline and to indicate aspects of the initiative that we believe can be approached differently. And we also have a responsibility as an opposition to indicate where we depart, where we differ with the way in which the government goes about the initiatives. And that's exactly what we've been doing. So unlike, I would like to disagree with my previous colleague who mentioned political divide and those types of expressions. I believe it is more about seeing it a different way, offering a different suggestion, because there's always another way, Madam President. And not because we disagree with the way you do things, suggest that we don't see any good in what you're doing. So I want to place it on the record that the opposition is not in any way against the initiative. So, Madam President, permit me now to outline a few areas of concern. First of all, I believe that the support and diversification of the tourism product is the responsibility of a sitting government. But it is also the responsibility of everyone else who is a stakeholder in the tourism industry to ensure that it is done well. And Madam President, do take note of my operative word here, diversification. Now, the tourism product, part of it is, of course, village tourism. It is a good concept, but it should include, for example, Madam President, a set of objectives that are clear. We have to be very clear on what the objective is when we speak of it. Madam President, I think one would want to believe that the objectives of the government are well intended. But I remember the Prime Minister speaking of inclusion when he made the presentation. The leader of government business this morning did not give much of a preview, but I recall from what was done previously that the intention was to have inclusion and reduce poverty, creating linkages with agriculture and so on. All of these things sound really nice. They do sound really nice. However, Madam President, we are yet to see much evidence of those linkages. And I think it is time that we stop talking about things and start showing the worth of what we're talking about. What are the linkages that we're talking about? Madam President, the money that we're borrowing is, from my observation, most of it seems to be for the infrastructure, and if I can put it in the words of the Prime Minister, to have the villages resemble the reception area of a hotel. Now, if you understand that analogy, it suggests that you are taking care of the front desk, the front area, and it's going to look nice. But, Madam President, I think we have to go beyond the reception area, because the real business of the hotel operation is not really in the front area. And so if that analogy is to be correct, I think we can go a little further. Madam President, how do you achieve this? How do you achieve these objectives that I wanted to allude to with the current state of the other supporting sectors like the agricultural sector? How do you really make good use of that initiative if the agricultural sector itself has not been properly advanced to give support to these initiatives? None of these initiatives can take place in isolation. None of them, Madam President. They have to be, and I do refer to the linkages that I mentioned in the beginning. Madam President, it seems that there is more exclusion than inclusion. And the posture of the government in the last 4.5 years has suggested that very well. After 4 budget cycles, Madam President, we are now in the 5th cycle. Despite several announcements, as we have heard, announcements of village tourism initiatives in Soufrière, in Ancillary, in Grosley, I have not seen much evidence. And I do say, Madam President, the words are nice, but we have to see the evidence. The tasting of the pudding is in the eating. So, Madam President, I have not seen the evidence of those pronouncements in the last 4.5 years, and I still wait for them. But I don't think we have much more time to wait, because the St. Lucian public, I think they've waited enough. Madam President, not even in the constituency or the community where I'm from, which happens to be the Prime Minister's constituency, that much of the evidence of that village tourism initiative has been shown. I'll give you 2 examples. There's a little community along the main road, near the main road, called Angers, And it's very close to the East Coast line. And there's quite a lot of historical information that can be attributed to that area. Amerindian artifacts and a lot of stuff that can really help to develop the village tourism product in the Prime Minister's own constituency. To the west of the community, Madam President, just by way of example, we have the Descartier trail that joins the community to Soufrière. You can actually take a 2.5-hour walk and go and enter Soufrière through that track. And these opportunities can create quite a lot in terms of employment and development for a community like the place that I'm from. So that is what I mean when I say, Madam President, that I have not seen evidence of any serious village tourism initiatives in the last 4 years, other than the talk that we've heard. So when I say stuff like this, Madam President, I am making reference not to politicize anything. I'm saying, listen, we believe village tourism is a good thing. You talk about it for 4.5 years. Start showing some worth. Start showing something. Put something on the table. Let us see that there is activity and that people are actually involved in doing certain things that they benefit from. Madam President, I will also give an example from a nearby community, Miku North. I'm sure most of us here know about the Latil area. There's a lovely waterfall, and it's been a small tourist attraction area. Madam President, again, I am speaking to areas that I know well and things that can be done for village tourism. There's not been any development there. This is a place that I go to. And the proprietor has complained. So I think these are opportunities for the government to demonstrate that it's serious about village tourism in communities that do not have direct access to the tourists, like some of the areas where we have all the hotels and other facilities. This is where you can show that you embrace all the communities. And I'm sure in Dennery North, there are some similar communities or similar opportunities. So let us diversify. Let us go out there and make things happen. Madam President, I suspect that we are still talking about the trickling down effect. And I think I heard the minister in the Ministry of Tourism in her presentation this morning make specific reference to the trickling down effect. Madam President, it has long been proven that this is not a very good model, even for economics. This trickling down thing, it's almost taking a chance. You need to show that you have taken specific initiative, deliberately intended, deliberate, not by chance. You hope that if something happens, then you have to be very direct. So I want, and I'm hoping that in the rebuttal of the Leader of Government Business, that we will be, this trickling down thing will be broken down a little bit better. So let's not trickle it down, let's break it down. So that it is very clear to us what exactly is the government saying when they mention the trickling down effect. So I look forward to that response, Madam President. Now, that $10 million that we spoke about, or we've been speaking about, I would like to know that, or how this will help to provide opportunity for the hundreds or perhaps thousands of St. Lucians who have lost their jobs, particularly in the tourism sector, during the last few months with the advent of COVID. I mean, this is a serious matter. Whether you're red, yellow, blue, or green, St. Lucians are suffering, and I think the previous presenter made reference to that. We need to know as a people, not as an opposition and red and yellow, we need to know as St. Lucians how $10 million that is going to be invested in an initiative is going to redound to real employment opportunities and relief for the hundreds and thousands of St. Lucians who have lost their jobs in the last few months. I do not understand any politics in that, Madam President. I hope it's not being misconstrued that just because we sit on this side of the House and we make an observation or we make a point, that is political. This is a political environment. But let us not be too quick to just cast a political shadow over everything that is being said on this side of the House. I think it is unfair, and it is not the way we should proceed. So I am hoping again that there will be specific examples and perhaps policy statements, if I can say, because we are policymakers, regarding how some of this money will be used to ensure that some relief is brought to those tourism sector workers and persons who are dependent on them to get some relief. Madam President, I'm going to wind down. So I just want to ask another question, and I would like again to have serious consideration placed on that. How do we measure the impact of the initiatives that we are going to take? We have to be able to measure that, because if we're going to spend $10 million on anything, we can't just throw the money out there and just hope that it trickles down again. We have to have some kind of mechanism in place to measure the impact. And that can be given back to the people so they can say, listen, we put $3.5 million out of this initiative into X initiative or into X project, and these are the returns after the first 6 months. Madam President, this is the kind of question that we would want to ask. And I hope that there'll be, within the next 6 months, there'll be enough time for the government to give that kind of feedback. Because the people have been waiting for that for a very long time. And in this tenure for at least 4.5 years. Madam President, sometimes we behave in this little country of ours, this beautiful Helen of the West, as if we have some sovereign and some special influence over what happens in our source markets, our tourism source markets. Madam President, we have to be a little more realistic, both with the statements that we make and in the expectations that we have when it comes to the tourism product. Any initiative that you're going to take in the area of tourism development, and in this case, the village tourism product, you have to make sure that you are not making assumptions that are unrealistic. In this little country of ours, Madam President, in the Helen of the West, we have none or very little control over what happens in our source markets. And we have heard and seen what is going on now in the US. We are not sure about the future policies with a change of government administration in the US. We have just heard of what is happening in the United Kingdom. These are two of our main source markets, without question. The borders are now closed in England. So we have to think about the implications of the implications that are there for us when things happen in countries that we have no control over. Let us not behave as if we have some guarantee down the line that things are going to remain the same, and we continue to invest money in projects and in initiatives without giving much thought to what is going to happen in the next few months. So when I mention those things, Madam President, I am demonstrating on this side of the House that we are just as concerned about the welfare and the future of our country and the investments that we're making as anyone else. Because I'm telling you, Madam President, we do not know in the next 6 months whether the US borders will be closed too. We don't know that. So, Madam President, let us demonstrate some measure of responsibility and open-mindedness when we make those pronouncements in this honorable House. Let us demonstrate that. I think we have that quality among us, and let us demonstrate that. So, Madam President, since we have no control over those issues and those situations beyond our shores, I believe that we have to leave some room. We have to leave some room for us to maneuver in the event that things do not turn out the way that we anticipated. In the last 4.5 years, Madam President, to sum up, I want to say that I do not believe that there has been enough vision. There's been a lack of diversity of the tourism sector, and the government has not given enough thought to some of the unpredictable events that are now with us. Madam President, I believe that given the fragility and the vulnerability of our country, our small states, with the advent of COVID, we have been exposed, and we must be very careful going forward. I also believe that, Madam President, things like the airport tax and hotels and jazz and some of the other investments or the activities that we would rely on to support all aspects of tourism are now under threat. And village tourism is not in any way isolated from those. And so, Madam President, we must not behave that at the 11th hour, a few months before elections are due, that we borrow 3.75 million US or 10 million EC, and that we would have solved any problem. I believe that we need to be a lot more responsible, a lot more open-minded, a lot more prepared to rethink our position, and that if the government had an intention to do something and the circumstances have changed, there is nothing wrong in coming back to the electorate and say, listen, we had intended to borrow this money to do this, but in light of the new circumstances, we have had to rethink our position. There's nothing wrong with that. St. Lucians understand that, and the opposition understands that too. So, Madam President, I think one more thing that I noted, and I want to make reference to one of the justification points that the Prime Minister attempted to make when he was presenting. And the justification was that there were some attractive rates available at the time that we were borrowing, so we should have taken advantage of that. Madam President, not because you walk up to Baywalk Mall and you see a big sale by Access or one of those places, you have $20 in your pocket, but when you get there, you see a big sale advertised, everything going for free, and you had not made specific plans to spend that money, that you should jump into the sale and take advantage because it's cheaper. Sometimes we have to let those things pass. I don't see that being any justification for borrowing $10 million, just because the rates are attractive. Even if the rates are attractive, if you have demonstrated to me and you've justified to me that it was necessary, fine. You get it at an attractive rate, take it. But don't tell me that just because there was an opportunity to get something cheap or something at a more competitive rate, that this is why you go ahead and borrow. That does not justify the borrowing to me. And I think that this kind of thinking demonstrates some of what I was saying. There must be prudent thought in what we're doing and not reacting to opportunities just because they are there. So, Madam President, with that in mind, I want to say that the opposition, again, is in no way opposed to village tourism, but the opposition is saying that we have difficulty with some of the justification that has been provided, some of what has gone on before that has not shown enough fruit, and that we hope that the government is going to demonstrate, and we want them to demonstrate to us what specifically, how these initiatives will specifically bring relief, particularly in the current situation that we are in. I look forward to that response from the leader of government business, and I hope that we will all be a little more comfortable and satisfied by the time we get that response. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator, be careful not to name persons on the outside of the chamber, as in... Senator Johnson.
Good afternoon, Madam President, fellow senators. I would just like to take a moment just to extend my deepest condolences to Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis on the passing of her son, and also the family of Mr. Wilkie Larcher. I would also like to take a moment to also remember our beloved citizens who are suffering from the COVID-19. We pray for their speedy recovery and good health. And for those who have passed on as a result of this deadly pandemic, let's continue to offer our condolences to their families and friends. This is very hard for all of us, and let's continue to keep them in our hearts and our prayers.
Senator, you can remove your mask if you wish.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. Thank you. Madam President, indeed, we are in challenging and unprecedented times. And for me, I think we have to do everything that we can to protect our society, our communities, and our loved ones, and our economy. Madam President, as we have seen from since March, the consequences of the disease of COVID-19 are undeniable. We have seen the burden on world economies and unexpected unemployment in many countries worldwide, and in particular, St. Lucia. It must be noted that prior to March, St. Lucia's economy was booming and unemployment was at an all-time low, thanks to the leadership of this country. And they are trying to do everything that they can to try to steer us on a good path in the midst of this pandemic. We are all in this together. The virus does not discriminate. Nobody asked for this, nobody, and it's all over the world. And it would benefit us all if we comply with the COVID-19 protocols in place for the protection of others and ourselves. As we can see, the government is faced with an increasing financial burden, increasing health expenditures, whilst revenues are down. This uncertainty is creating tremendous fiscal risk. And borrowing is necessary, whether we borrow for the tourism project or for COVID, borrowing is indeed necessary because we have very limited resources and we are a small island developing state. And borrowing is necessary not only for the project, but also in putting back funding into the economy. You are creating jobs for the welfare of all St. Lucians. I would just like to talk a bit more on COVID, because what I've seen over the past few months, the COVID has been on the rise, and we have had to expend funding for much needed equipment, supplies, and infrastructure.
Senator?
Yeah.
The resolution at hand is about borrowing for the village tourism project. So if you're going to say anything about COVID, you need to tie it to that.
Okay.
It cannot be a lengthy discourse on COVID.
Thank you. Yeah. So in terms of the village tourism project, it is indeed essential that we expend monies into the small villages so that we can create employment for the citizens of our country. And I would like to say I support the investment into village tourism. Thank you, Madam President.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I am going to attempt to Yes, Madam President, I will attempt to provide as much information or as many responses as possible. But I have to say that earlier when I welcomed our new senators, I was very heartened to see that the women in the House have outnumbered the men or the ladies, so to speak. And I was hoping that, I was going to say that I hope someday we probably will have only women to carry on the business of government. But I decided to hold back a bit and wait to see what our new senators had to offer. And I recognize that over the past few years, although we had 2 women contesting a general election on the opposition side, they did not find it fitting to engage any of these women to represent in the House. But now I guess they have seen the error of their ways, and they have decided to see what our young senator will contribute. And I know that women have a lot to contribute in terms of governance. But I was disappointed, Madam President, because here we are looking at a money bill, a resolution that is going to create employment for many people in a sector that do not necessarily go out there to work. These are people in the villages, in the towns and villages, who provide, services, goods and services to attract our tourists coming to St. Lucia. And as you know, right now, tourism is the most impacted area, the most impacted sector as far as, of course, health and tourism, as far as COVID is concerned. So I thought that, and our new senator, being opposition senator, being a woman, a businesswoman, should find it fitting that this government is trying to create employment. The government is trying to sustain a sector of our economy that is so vital and important for employment and employing, in particular, people who are very vulnerable, that, they are, in most cases, low-skilled and so on. And they get to stay in their own villages and towns and provide a service that is critical as far as the tourism sector is concerned. But instead, what I heard, Madam President, was the same rhetoric and, the same, I don't even know how to call it. But in any case, in this upper house, Madam President, as far as I know, when we debate and we present, we really do so based on the substance of the resolution or the bill that is being presented. Madam President, tourism used to be our mainstay. And as such, we ought not to inject, we ought to be able to inject finance in the village tourism initiative. Our tourism product, like I said, is one of the hardest hit by COVID. But we know that many of our people go into hospitality, the hospitality sector. We have many of our young people who are on the cruise ships, who had to come back home. They are not employed. A lot of these young people got the opportunity in tourism to go and experience the world, to get much needed training, valuable discipline when they work on these cruise ships, Madam President. But now, because of COVID, they have had to return home and they are unemployed. We have households of single parents that have now become unemployed. No income at all for some households. In some households, both parents have no income right now. And government is seeking to inject funding, finance in an area that, is so vital at this point in time, because people cannot really travel out there to get a better living, or they cannot go back on the cruise ships. And this is something that we are looking at enhancing, that is in our towns, local towns and villages, Madam President. And oftentimes we hear people complain, the opposition complaining about how government is not interested in the people of St. Lucia, government do not care, and that sort of thing. Now, one resolution, Madam President, this amount of borrowing, this initiative, is not going to address every sector of society that we need to address. We have had other initiatives that address other areas in St. Lucia. We have had initiatives for agriculture. We have had initiatives for social programs, Madam President. This is focusing on a small sector of our society. And this is what it is. It cannot answer all our questions. So I am hoping that, and the opposition is calling, senators are calling for, injection in other sectors. I hope that when government comes to this House to ask for finance, to finance other sectors of our society, that we do not hear the same tune being played about pumping money in one area. Madam President, we have to borrow. It was not our intention, but this pandemic has affected every area of the globe. At one time, we were the best off in terms of containing COVID-19. But, of course, because of the tooting, the negative tooting of the opposition, because of the negative tooting, Madam President, of the Labour Party, you see where now we have community spread. And I refuse to allow people to say there is no connection. There is a direct connection between the time that COVID-19 cases started to rise and the time that the opposition had the march. Madam President, we need to stop burying our heads in the sand and pretending that something is not what it is.
Senator,
the statistics are there, Madam President.
Let me remind you that the bill is about village tourism. Can you tie what you're saying to that?
Thank you, Madam President. We find ourselves borrowing today for village tourism, Madam President, because of the COVID pandemic. Before that, prior to now, the government was on track and on path of sustaining all its projects and all its initiatives. Right now, we have had to roll back. We said we were going to create a revenue stream every time we borrowed for each activity. But right now, there is no country that can do that, Madam President. There are a lot of things that we have to roll back on. And the opposition must understand that because they claim they care about the people. If you care about the people, you do not take government to task on what government promised prior to COVID. Because that is, the times are different now, Madam President. And this bill is coming to us here because government need to borrow. And this is something that we have to get used to in this House. When revenue goes down below 50%, where are we going to make up the shortfall, Madam President? In your own homes. If your income goes down below 50%, what are you going to do? Are you just going to sit and wait until COVID goes away? You have to do something to protect your people, your citizens, and your country. You have to spend money to sustain your economy and develop. We say we have to live with COVID. We have no choice at this point. It is here. We do not know for how long. We do not know what the side effects are going to be. We do not know what the long-term effects are. So we must borrow to sustain our economy, Madam President. And we have other resolutions that are coming in this House today to borrow. So even if we say that until death do us part, it is not going to change the price of coffee. We have to borrow to sustain our economy and our people. Madam President, the government is not borrowing this money to put in our pocket. No. How many of us in here are involved in village tourism? How many ministers of government are involved in village tourism? We are looking out for the interests of our people. And to be coming here, Madam President, and asking 4 years later about attractions in your community, the opposition senator, leader of opposition business, is asking about 2 attractions in his community. What has happened within the last 4 years? My question to that is, what happened within the last 8 years? What happened before the last 4.5 years? Why stop at 4 years? I do not know that anything happened prior to the 4 years that you're talking about, that he's talking about, Madam President, sorry. So, this kind of divisiveness, this kind of tactic to try and make the government look bad, at every turn it tried to take to create a better environment for our people during this pandemic, Madam President, I really think when people say people are politicking, the opposition ought to look at themselves when they say this government is trying to politic. Madam President, these bills do not just come out of thin air. We have public officers who sit, they look at government's programs, and they advise on what measures that ought to be taken. And it is very, very dangerous when the opposition go about criticizing everything, because what they are really doing is they are challenging the work of the public workers in the system. The very same people who are there looking out for our interests, for our country's interests, Madam President. So this initiative here, a little village tourism, borrowing to sustain village tourism, and we speak of Canries and Slurry, one of the poorest areas in our community, in our society. These initiatives go directly to these small areas, Madam President, and it enhances the lives of many of the people who never ever really want to leave home, the people who make the arts and crafts to attract our tourists, to sell a little something when we have tourists that come to St. Lucia. Madam President, prior to COVID, Madam President, the talk and even the statistics, the figures were showing that we had growth, positive growth prior to COVID. And we were well on track to continue that trend way into the next year and so on. So we cannot now come to this house and pretend that the government was always borrowing. The government's only intention is to borrow money and nobody knows where this money is going to. Because at the end of the day, Madam President, we have a budget cycle, we have a budget process, and through that process, the monies are justified. So it is not just what we come in this house and talk. The documentation is there. The information is there. Nobody is hiding anything. But Madam President, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Senator Ferdinand asked about trickling down. Senator Bellows came here and she segmented, she dissected everything that needed to be said about the village tourism product. She explained how it's going to be done, when it's going to be done, and everything else, the different places and everything. I was sitting there, I heard her. But now Senator Ferdinand comes and says, where is the trickling down effort? What is going to trickle down? Senator Bellows has already told you what is going to trickle down. So we do not want to take any more time, the Senate's time, going over what she has already said. Because you would not like me to go over and repeat what Senator Bellows has already said. Madam President, I also know that our Minister of Tourism and the Ministry of Tourism is doing a fabulous job in terms of keeping the country informed as far as the tourism product is concerned. As far as the Ministry of Tourism goes, these people are working very, very hard to report to the country at every turn. So, opposition senator asked about our source markets. And the Minister of Health, almost every day, is talking about our source markets. We are aware of what is happening out there. We are aware that there's a new dispensation in the United States. And we are very cognizant of that. And this is why we know we must borrow money to sustain our own economy, because we do not know what's coming. We do not know what is coming. Countries, even those international organizations and countries, they hardly give much support to small developing states anymore. So we're more or less on our own. And therefore, we must sustain the people in our country while we are in this pandemic mode. You know, Madam President, we hear everybody is saying there's a pandemic, the pandemic. It has created problems all over the world. But at the same time, I do not think they have understood the impact of this pandemic. Because they say one thing on one side, and on another side, you all come in to borrow. You all should have put these monies into this and that, and so on and so forth. But Madam President, every time we borrow, we say what we are going to put it in. And they're saying, you shouldn't put it in that, we want you to put it in something else. Where are we going, Madam President? Where are we going? So I am here to support this resolution. to give it my full support, Madam President, because I know it is a necessity, and I want to just give the opposition a head start that there will be other such projects coming here for financing.
Senator, though the increased number of women in the chamber is commendable, this chamber has to be careful not to identify with sexism. Senators. Senators, the question is that Parliament authorize the Minister of Finance to borrow an amount of $3,750,000 from the CARICOM Development Fund for the purpose of providing financial assistance to the support of the implementation of the Village Tourism Initiative by enhancing specified infrastructure and supporting eligible small and medium-sized enterprises. Be it further resolved that A, interest is payable at a rate of 3% per annum on the amount of the loan withdrawn and outstanding from the loan account, and B, the loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the 30th day March, 30th day of June, 30th day of September, and 30th day of December, commencing 1. On the first due date after the expiry of 2 years following the date of the disbursement of the loan, or 2. On a later due date as specified in writing by the CARICOM Development Fund. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Thank you. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. I beg to move a motion to request 1 hour for lunch at this time.
The question is that this sitting do stand adjourned for 1 hour for lunch. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.
So the sitting of the Senate today, Thursday the 12th of November, has just been suspended for 1 hour to facilitate lunch. We just wrapped up a debate on a resolution to borrow funds to sustain village tourism. We so far saw contributions in no particular order from Honorable Mary Isaac, the Leader of Government Business, Honorable Herman Francis, Honorable Fortuna Belrose, Senator Gideon Ferdinand, the Leader of Opposition Business, Senator Angelina Polius, her second sitting since being sworn in as a government senator, and Senator Marcella Johnson, Senator Lisa Jawahir making her maiden submission, and Senator Terrence Sinclair making his maiden submission today. And based on this, just to go back to the start of the proceedings, these two new opposition senators were sworn in. They replaced the outgoing Leader of the Senate, Joachim Henry, and outgoing Senator Jerome Gideon. We also saw the temporary appointment of independent senators renewed. They were sworn in once again for today's sitting. That is Senator Jacinta Lee and Senator Marcella Johnson. They were initially sworn in early October to a temporary sit-in for Senator Adrian Auger and Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis. These two senators have not been able to attend today's proceedings, and so Senator Lee and Senator Johnson, they did swear in again today in order to facilitate today's proceedings. The President of the Senate, President Jurody McIntyre, did indicate that Senator Adrian Auger indicated that he would not be able to make today's proceedings because he was in isolation in accordance with COVID-19 protocols. And the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis, did indicate that she would not be able to make today's sitting due to bereavement, bereaving the loss of a family member, her son. The motions and bills that were passed in the Honorable House in the last two sittings of the lower house were articulated by the President of the Senate. That was the last 2 days' proceedings of the House of Assembly, and these motions and bills were read in the Honorable House, and things kick-started with the resolution to fund the sustenance of the village tourism project of the government of St. Lucia. As I mentioned, we've just seen contributions made by the senators this morning. We are going to go back to studio as we also break for lunch, and we'll return after the hour recess for the continuation of the sitting of the upper house, the sitting of the Senate today. Do stay tuned to NTN.